나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Alrighty, hello everyone. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. I hope you're doing well, feeling well, healthy, secure. It's a little rainy today, so if you may hear that as a noise in the background. Let's continue. Is this the last one? This might be either the ultimate or the penultimate translation from Dr. Jacqueline Stone's dissertation. We've been reading translations of, there's two of them remaining. And then we'll start on, no, this is the last one. Okay, all right. Why did I not mark the other one? Interesting. The letter to Boatmaster Yasaburo. Now, we read not too long ago, actually, a translation of this same writing, this same Gosho, from the Gosho Zenshu. This is Dr. Jacqueline Stone's translation from her dissertation, that is. And, let's see if we pick up any nuances. And no doubt we will find a translation in the, what is it called? The Nichiren Shujiten, the other library of translations, which goes by several names. They all follow the Taisho organizational classifications. Anyway, let's go ahead, and this will be the last we'll read from this huge book that I made. Letter to Boatmaster Yasaburo. Now, just as a reminder, this is the letter that Nichiren wrote to a gentleman and his wife, expressing gratitude for their receiving of him when he was banned to Sado, and or is it Ito? Shoot, we'll find out here. But at any rate, a lot of people, because he was banned, and the shogunate, makes a show of their ire, their criminalization of somebody when they exile them. They make it known that this is an undesirable person, right? So it's the trial of public opinion. And if you're a citizen of an authoritarian government like that, then you certainly think to yourself, and probably in actual fact, it's probably good to just go along with whatever the government says, so that you don't attract undue attention, suspicion your way, and perhaps have certain condemnations come down on you simply for not, hoorah, yeah, we're with you, Mr. Authoritarians, right? So, as Nichiren is delivered to his exile, the people of that area, scant as they may be, all throw him a lot of shade. They look at him funny. They may insult him out loud. They may even throw things at him, stones and so forth. Because after all, he's in punishment, right? So there must be a reason. He's a bad person. But unlike most of the population in this scantily populated area where he's being exiled to this tiny shed, drafty shed, the proprietors of the area where his shed is receive him graciously, respect him. They offer him food because the authorities just basically say, well, you're going to starve to death here, die, you this and that, right? So Nichiren has to depend on the kindness of others just to survive. And he's in exile, so the people who support him on the mainland are going to have a hard time crossing the oceans, the seas around Japan to get to this little remote island to bring him offerings. So it's no easy matter, right? This is a very severe sentence. And so to have the support of locals in the area who are taking a risk by supporting him, bringing him food, and eventually convert to his scholarship of the Lotus Sutra Buddhism, that's quite an exceptional thing. So just to put context, you may, just so you understand, if he's very gracious and creates a story around the support he received from them, it's because it's deeply sincere and grateful for, they basically kept him from starving to death, right? So let's get into it. Quote, I have received the rice dumplings wrapped in bamboo grass, sake, dried rice, peppers, paper, and other items that you troubled to send me by your messenger. The messenger also said that you had instructed him to tell me that this matter should be kept secret, which I fully understand. So there you have the context, right? So they send somebody, because he's in a very remote area, and they send somebody to bring him food and support and paper so he can write, make notes, make letters, right? But they say, in case anybody interrogates you or comes around and checks on you, don't tell them where you got this stuff, because then we'll be in danger, right? Samurai, shogunate, informants, or even locals who are, again, because of the authoritarianship, feel emboldened to carry out sentences on their own just to demonstrate their filial piety to the shogunate. They might show up and just behead us. Scary times, right? Nichiren continues. On the 12th day of the last 5th month, having been exiled, I reached that harbor, and when I got out from the boat at a place whose name I had not even heard of, and was suffering, you kindly took me into your care. What karma led you to do so? Could it be that in the past, you were a practitioner of the Lotus Sutra? And now, in the final Dharma age, have been born as the boatmaster Yasaburo to take pity on me, Nichiren. In other words, to express compassion toward me, right? This is often translated as taking pity on me or having pity for. In the West, we use the word pity as a bit of a derisive term, don't we? But it's not meant that way. In these translations, even if the word equates somewhat to the word pity in English, it's really closer to a taking compassion toward, right? Although a man might perhaps have done as you did, your wife too gave me food, brought me water to wash my feet and hands, and in other ways as well treated me with kindness. Now that's saying a great bit, because women in the 13th century shogunate world of Japan were just, it's not enough to say they were possessions, property, but they were property that had a very narrow scope of allowed behavior, right? Such was the time. I do not know why. I can only say that it was wondrous. In particular, he goes on, what made you secretly take faith or conviction, confidence in the Lotus Sutra and serve me for more than 30 days? That to Nichiren and to you and I, that's impressive. So perhaps they had already heard of Nichiren's doctrines, or they had already heard through the Tendai schools of the day about the Lotus Sutra, and had confidence, had taken resolve in Lotus Sutra practice, let alone through Nichiren's scholarship, right? So Nichiren's trying to find a way to understand why they were so kind to him in this period of his exile. This is an early exile, and he was still kind of figuring out his life's work, his life's mission, and how, I'm sure in the early days, even though he was very well educated, spent his life since he was 12 years old, approximately. He started his learning and teaching career in the temples of Tendai, and I'm sure he had no doubts about the scholarship of what he was doing, but his proselytizing of it, I'm sure, gave him pause. I mean, his life was at risk many, many times. The steward and the people of the district hated me, resented me even more than the people in Kamakura, right? Outlying areas. And this is the nature of authoritarian governments, right? The people around, they play a servile role to the in this case the shogunate or the government agencies, but the people that are way out in the land, they get this wave of authoritarianship, and they make a very black and white decision. I'm following, cover my own butt, or I keep very quiet, right? And anyone who rocks the boat, they're just enemy number one, regardless of, there's no subtlety about it, right? So Nichiren goes on, those who saw me glared furiously, while those who heard of me became hostile. Yet even though it was the 5th month when rice is scarce, you secretly fed me. It would seem as though my father and mother had been reborn at a place called Kawana near Ito in Izu. So this was the earlier, this is not Sado, this is Ito in Izo exile. Chuan 4 of the Lotus Sutra states, quote, I will send ... gentlemen and women of pure conviction to make offerings to the Dharma teacher, end quote. This sutra passage means that for one who practices the Lotus Sutra, the heavenly gods and deities, benevolent deities, those positive forces in life, will assume the guise now of men, now of women, changing their form to serve and assist him in various ways. And of course, we understand this is expedient means. This is the way to use stories in order to validate behavior. Remember, Buddhism's about the mind. So this isn't about deities and gods. It's about resonating. Remember, I've talked a lot about how when we enliven our Buddha-ness, our Buddha nature, when we chant Namo Myo Renge Kyo, we not only awaken our minds, but remember, everything is energy. So we shape our energy to have an influence because we're connected with our environment. We're not self and other, we're self entirely. And we're connected with everything in our environment, right? It's a flow of energy. So when we change our energy toward our Buddha, the Buddha, then when we course in the world, we affect our environment, other people, our, our garden, our plants, everything in our lives is affected by our life condition. And so this is a statement around that idea that because the Lotus Sutra practice is so profound, that one who then takes on the behavior of a bodhisattva, in other words, coursing the world with that Buddha mind, is such a commitment to teach others, to assist others in achieving the same thing. It's such a profound influence on self and environment that the environment, in storytelling fashion, would seem to support, and in fact does support, because it's influenced, the continuation of that effort, right? So that's how these stories are written, just so you understand that there aren't any actual gods or benevolent deities. In fact, when he says, we'll assume the guise, now of men, now of women, changing their forms, serve as assist, he's talking about the influence on one's environment that will reciprocate in similar fashion to support that good work, right? Because it is, even analytically, mathematically, if you will, the effect of putting soap in water is that it spreads throughout the water with its effect of cleansing, and the water reciprocates by receiving the soap and spreading it and doing its fine work. A weak analogy, but you see what we're discussing here is exactly that. There can be no doubt that Yasaburo Dono and his wife were born as a gentleman and woman and served the Dharma teacher Nichiren. So again, saying the same thing, and he's spent several paragraphs now showing his depth of gratitude for the effort and the risk that these people are taking, and that he wants to make sure they understand that they are to be lauded. It's not just a simple thank you, in other words. He's demonstrating that with their lives, they are practicing bodhisattva practice. They are affected by their Lotus Sutra respect and practice, right? Or commitment, confidence. Now he goes on. Since I wrote in detail in my last letter, so he's written them before, I will keep this one brief. Specifically, however, I will mention that when the steward of this area requested that I offer meditations concerning his illness, oh yeah, we're exiling you, you're a persona non grata. Oh, but while you're here, would you do some incantations to help my health? Because I'm not feeling well. Oh, so do you respect me or don't you? Right? It's very odd. So the guy who runs the place on Izu, the steward of this area, requests that I offer meditations concerning his illness. I pondered what I should do. Oh, Nichiren, you're a human being after all, right? So I'm here in your prison, and you want me to do something nice for you. How should I feel about that, right? However, since he had displayed even a slight degree of confidence in me, I resolved to appeal to the Lotus Sutra, right? Because it's not really about Nichiren, is it? This is a very important statement he just made. He's saying, yeah, he asked me, a man, to offer my powers of persuasion, as it were, to help him through his illness, to cure him, right? So really, he's not asking me, a man. He's asking through my connection of what I practice, that I invoke, that I somehow draw some of that power from that knowledge, that enlightenment, and send it his way. But see, we humans, we don't communicate that way. We say, you do this, I will do this. Right? That identification all the time. Me, 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 me. Ego, ego. That's my poor little dog having a hard time breathing. Sorry about that. So that's quite wise. I mean, when we have such doubts, do we really think about it more profoundly as the true nature of what a request is or what somebody says is, right? Like when somebody says a bunch of hurtful things to us, we tend to take it immediately, right? We take offense. But we don't need to take the offense. The offense is being made, but the offense is really an expression of that person's pain. What a different way of seeing that offensive behavior. And that would send you right into compassion, wouldn't it not? So this is what Nichiren is saying is, this clown who's my jailer, first thing he does is ask me to, make him use whatever power I have to make him healthy. But it's not the power I have. It's the power that I'm connected to. And so in his fumbling manner, he's really asking for proof of enlightenment and Lotus Sutra, of the teachings. Do they work? Wow. So he may be rude and he may be in a position that's on the surface seems unhealthy to me, but in fact, he's really asking to learn and perhaps could become a practitioner of Lotus Sutra Buddhism and chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. What an opportunity. So that's a very important couple of sentences there. At that time, I thought, how could then the 10 Rakshasa daughters fail to join forces to aid me? In other words, the compassionate forces of the Lotus Sutra. How could they fail to support me, right? And I addressed the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni, many jewels, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions, as well as Amaterasu, Hachiman, and the greater and lesser deities. What's he saying right there? Pay attention. What's on this mandala that's behind me? Yeah, Shakyamuni, many treasures, Hachiman, all of them. Nichiren was appealing, chanting to his mandala. So he addressed the Lotus Sutra, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Shakyamuni, many, right? This is the practice. In case you wonder where the practice comes from, these letters. Certainly to us, we don't know about his personal communications with many of his immediate disciples or other, but we do have letters to them too, so we know how to practice Lotus Sutra Buddhism from these letters, many letters. This is a personal one, but he's also, as you know, made treatises and sent special notes to leaders and abbots or senior monks of different temples. Yeah. Nichiren continues, I thought that they would certainly confer and manifest some sign. He was hoping to have evidence that of his own practice, as we all are. Surely they would never abandon Nichiren, but would respond appropriately. I mean, I'm working my butt off here. I expect to see some result, right? Just as one extends a hand to touch a sore or an itch, and at length his illness was cured. His gift to me of a Buddha image that had emerged from the sea with a catch of fish was due to his gratitude at recovering from this illness. Surely that illness was a rebuke from the 10 Rakshasa daughters. The merit resulting from Nichiren's meditations will become the merit of you two, husband and wife. Because that's the way this works. This isn't like writing a prescription. This is when you open your life up to Buddha, and you do so with great compassion for someone, then the entirety of that connection, which begins with being simply fed by these two, husband and wife, when he arrived there, I mean, how could he have had the opportunity to wring his compassion, his Buddha essence, his Buddha nature outward toward those he connected with on the island, including the jailer, right? The steward of the area. How could he affect his environments to the point of influencing the steward's health had it not been for this husband and wife keeping him alive? They're all interconnected. See, this, I'm going to spend a moment on that because this is very much misunderstood. And the easiest way to misunderstand this, and the most common way this is misunderstood, is that we can chant for other people's benefits, other people's health, other people's wealth, other people's better job, whatever. And this is a misinterpretation that is capitalized on a lot, and I won't get into that again, but it confronts this singular tripwire that we experience and as common mortals. It's our attachment, our identifying with things. When we open Buddha for our minds to experience, and that's a most accurate way of saying it, you don't have a personal Buddha, I don't have a personal Buddha, there are not 10,000 Buddhas in 10 different directions. That a lot of what we read is written that way, and therefore that's the way we think. But that is a very samsaric way to think. If there's anything that I've been elucidating over months and months of reading Gosho and other writings from the scholarship of Buddhism, please understand that each of us has a singular karmic construct that we're manifesting, right? A flow of Sylvaneness, a flow of Tamminess, a flow of Johnness. And that particular flow has particular experience and attachment to this life, this samsaric, this saha world, right? And because we have individual experiences, geographically, as well as familially and culturally and socially, on and on and on, the karma that we're cleansing and seeing through requires a different kind of deconstruction for each and every one of us. It's all ultimately from the same source, this karma, but it's intensely complicated by uncountable numbers of little decisions and little influences and little conditions that have resulted in this personage that we experience, right? So our path, our Buddha wisdom, is personal. Your path and my path, though we may share a tremendous amount, still has little subtleties that are individually you and I, of course. But that's a construct. That's a construct of our samsaric identity. when we awaken our ninth consciousness, that consciousness of, and this is our particular experience of, Buddha is not Sylvain's Buddha or Paul's Buddha or Reggie's Buddha or Brandon's Buddha. It's Buddha. It's foundational. It's pre-Big Bang Buddha. But that, because it's pre-Big Bang, doesn't mean you can point at it and say, that's when Buddha was. That's a misperception again because of identification. The condition that allows for formations before there's any form at all is what allows all of this to manifest, including you and I. So when we awaken Buddha, and what Nichiren identifies as Gohanzon, is that unique door that you make, that I make, that she makes, that they make, through our own samsaric mind, the other eight consciousnesses, right? To see, to experience, to encapsulate the entirety of the life process is Buddha, the same enlightenment, the same fundamental process that spawned us in the first place, that we all arrive at. It's like a public pool. We all jump in the pool and we have our own experience of swimming, how we swim, how we sink, how we float, how we move around the pool. But the pool is the pool. It's not your pool, it's not my pool. We swim in the pool, but we have our own path within the pool. Make sense? So it's important to realize that, because when we hear a statement like, the merit resulting from Nichiren's meditations will become the merit of you two, husband and wife. So the influence inculcated from participating, being in, invoking Buddha resonates through one's self and one's environs, which, as we know from study, are not separate things. Ultimately, all of it comes from the same source. So if I was going to make a really bad analogy, but if you drop your Doritos into the pool, everyone's going to share in some aspect of those Doritos, right? I mean, that's really odd. You probably have figured out what the thought that went through my mind. I can't stop thinking about it. So that's important to understand. In our own pursuit of Buddha, we influence those around us. Period. Nichiren didn't chant for the steward or the husband and wife. He appealed to the Lotus Sutra in chanting to Shakyamuni Buddha, right? He chanted to his mandala to enliven his own awakening, his own Buddha-ness. And the result is that his environment is affected. And the fact that the steward gets better, that's just a result of Nichiren's focus on the Lotus Sutra and his appeal to the forces of Buddha to influence his environment with compassion. And how then could the husband and wife be excluded from that? That's the very proof that it influences our entire environment, just not selected few. But it's only achieved through self-enlightenment. Do you see? That's very important to understand. Where are we time-wise? We're doing good. Shall I go another paragraph? How long is this one? Yeah, this isn't a very long. I'll go a little further, and if it takes us, I think that alone was a good point to make and to consider as we meditate and we practice how this practice functions in samsara. We living beings, he goes on, have dwelt in the sea of birth and death since time without beginning. So there's that confounding statement again. The sea of birth and death is moment to moment, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, rebirth, birth, death, rebirth, however terminology you want to use it. It's a constantly happening flow of energy, right? But in another respect, it's also a constantly happening birth, death flow from the Big Bang until whenever. We're just this little formed experience. We're this temporary engagement of that whole experience to perceive it. That's our whole reason for being here, is to have this mind, to perceive it, be fully immersed in it, and then our identity, our identification of it is just a momentary construct to allow perception. And then it goes away, and there's no need for perception. This flow and the energy continues, does what it's going to do, has always done. Time, space, time, right? But having become practitioners of the Lotus Sutra, see, he doesn't say practitioners of Nichiren, it says practitioners of the Lotus Sutra. Please take note. We shall become the person of the Buddha whose form and mind are without beginning, who is the originally inherent principle of the Buddha nature, the process, the union of the subtle object and the subtle wisdom, indestructible as the Vajra. And she's got a note here, too, a description of Vajra. I have expanded some technical terminology in the translation to fit the grammatical context. Part of this sentence is taken from the passage in Chanjan's concerning the inconceivable, and that would be on Tendai's study of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment, right? I think that's where I'll stop. Questions? This is a very profound thing he's talking about in this rather personal letter, right? All the better for us, because we're just personal. We're not in authority over Nichiren by any means, right? But he is our mentor and our exemplar. So look at the way he practices. Look at the depth of appreciation and scholarship that he provides wherever he goes. It's pretty astounding. Then how are we any different from that Buddha whose image emerged from the sea? There's a lot of stories about that particular image emerging from the sea, having to do with Buddhism's migration through Korea and then to Japan, and how it was celebrated and at one time shunned, and a lot of articles of devotion and statuary and so forth were tossed into the sea, and that this particular statue of Shakyamuni is retrieved by a fishing boat and somehow ends up in Nichiren's hands. There's a whole series of stories about that and what that might imply to the history of the dissemination of Lotus Sutra, Tendai, other forms of Buddhism, and how it migrated from Pakshi in Korea to Japan, so on and so forth. So his reference, I only say that to this reference is more profound and larger than he alludes to in this letter, because he's talking to somebody who's anybody in Japan would know this history like they understand the history of Hachiman as being this great liberator, and it is connected to that very folklore as well of Hachiman, is that statue. So whether that's an actual statue or how, this is what that reference is to. But obviously, he feels a very, very profound connection with this husband and wife team. This being his first exile, Nichiren is starting to figure out not only that he's a monk who's educated and spreading the teachings of Shakyamuni and the Lotus Sutra, the self-practice of the Lotus Sutra, but that he is going to start to identify himself as one of those personages that was talked about in the Lotus Sutra. Not only one of the bodhisattvas of the earth, that's us, right? The future bodhisattvas, but that he may be embodying the personage or the description of the behavior of one of the leading bodhisattvas. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. But for now, I hope there's a lot of meat in just this part of this letter. So I'm wanting to let you digest that and ask questions. That's what the comments are for. And or email me. Let me know what you think if you have any questions. Some of them may be answered as we finish this letter. But along the way, there's a lot of high points, and I don't want them to get lost in the shuffle. So consider that, and tomorrow we'll read the rest of it and finish this Gosho. Thank you for being here. Take care of your health. Be kind. Be kind to yourself and others. Namo Myo Renge Go. Keep your confidence high, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay? Bye for now.